You've definitely watched videos of people saying that you need 1 Bitcoin, 10 Bitcoin, 100 Bitcoin, 0.25 Bitcoin, 0.21 Bitcoin, whatever the number is. But in this video, I want to show you the math behind owning 0.01 Bitcoin. Today, that amount of Bitcoin will cost you about $650. You can buy more if you want. You can buy less, whatever you can afford, whatever your heart desires, whatever you want. But in general, owning 0.01 Bitcoin, I think by the next few years, next few decades, you're going to do very well if you own even 1% of a Bitcoin. So let's get started. The first thing I want to show you here is how 1 Bitcoin works. So 1 Bitcoin is just a collection of 100 million Satoshis. Satoshis are the smallest unit that you can divide a Bitcoin into. So 1 Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis. 1 Satoshi is 0.0000001 Bitcoin. So 0.7 zeros and then a 1 Bitcoin, right? So 1 Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis. 1 Satoshi is 1/100 millionth of 1 Bitcoin. That part's pretty easy. The next part that I want to show you is how Bitcoin is actually used. So why you need to know about the Satoshis, why you need to know about how Bitcoin is split into smaller units. So the main use case for Bitcoin, the very first use case, the prime utility for use case for Bitcoin is to have your transactions included on a Bitcoin block. You need to pay Satoshi. So we can see here, there are transaction fees. These transaction fees are based on supply and demand. Right now, you can pay 46 cents to be included in the very next block for the Bitcoin network, and you can have your transaction confirmed, transaction settled for 46 cents. So the total amount that this is worth is 5 sats per VByte. We can see here, 1 Bitcoin is just a collection of that 100 million Satoshis. Everything on the actual network is denominated in Satoshis. 1 Bitcoin is, so we can see here, this is 9,100,000 Satoshis. The total fees that were paid on this block, this is the most recent block that was created, added to the Bitcoin blockchain. Whoever mined this block received a block subsidy and fees of 3.216 Bitcoin. So we can see the total number here, 3.216,36522. So they received 321,636,522 Satoshis, 3.21 Bitcoin. Now I'm going to switch over to a spreadsheet to show you the math behind owning 0.01 Bitcoin and why I think that'll be enough. So if you need to, lower your brightness now. I explained to you that 1 Bitcoin is equivalent to 100 million Satoshis. In total, by 2140, there will be 21 million Bitcoin, which converts to 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. The lost Bitcoin, there's estimates of how much Bitcoin has been lost. People lose their private keys. Basically a password. This is one of the things that you need to know about Bitcoin. If you lose your password, there's no way to recover your Bitcoin. The password has to be taken care of. You have to make sure that you don't lose it. It's like if you had cash in your pocket, if you lose that cash, somebody else finds it, you're never going to get it back, right? So same thing here. Bitcoin is being lost every single day. People are losing their private keys. They're not taking care of their Bitcoin. An estimated 3 to 5 million Bitcoin are lost forever, and they're never going to be found again. So just for the sake of this spreadsheet, I made it a little easier for myself, made it 4 million Bitcoin lost forever. Total circulating supply, based on which block we're on right now, is 19,733,000 Bitcoin. So if we look at the Bitcoin supply schedule, we can see here that right now, the total block subsidy is 3.125 Bitcoin. Total of 450 Bitcoin are being produced per day. Every 4 years, this amount decreases by 50%. So if we go all the way down to 2140, we can see here that we're never going to actually reach this 21 million number. We're going to be slightly below it. So 20,999,999 Bitcoin. And then there's going to be 99,755,530 Satoshis added on top. So we're never actually going to reach that 21 million number. The supply, the amount being produced, the amount of the block subsidies being decreased every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin that's being added for each epoch. So each one of these is an epoch. Each one is an epoch. The amount of Bitcoin being added every epoch is half of the total remaining supply. So at this point, there were 21 million Bitcoin remaining supply. 10.5 million Bitcoin were added. So we can see here, 10.5 million Bitcoin. The difference between this epoch, and this epoch is 5.25 million Bitcoin. You can see here there were in total, of course, 10.5 million Bitcoin left, and out of that, half of the Bitcoin are being produced in that epoch. So we can see here every single epoch, that's exactly what happens when you receive a certain block reward to the end of when you receive a block reward. That's called an epoch. So from January 3rd, 2009 to November 28th, 2012, there were 50 Bitcoin being produced every 10 minutes. That was the first epoch. From November 28th, 2012 to July 9th, 2016, there were 25 Bitcoin being produced every 10 minutes. So that was the second epoch. Over time, we are decreasing how many Bitcoin are being produced. Like I said, we're right now at 3.125 Bitcoin per 10 minutes. Eventually, in 2028, will be 1.5625 Bitcoin per 10 minutes. So from this, you can see that the supply is well known. We know exactly how many Bitcoin are going to be produced by when. Let's go back to the other spreadsheet here. Total Bitcoin loss is 4 million. Total circulating supply is about 19.7 million right now. Total circulating supply in 2050 will be 20.984 million Bitcoin. So 20,984,000 Bitcoin will be produced and in circulation. The current global population is 8 billion people. So technically, everybody in the world can benefit from it. So whoever competes for this Bitcoin is going to receive a Bitcoin based on how early they are to the network. Right now, there are people who own thousands of Bitcoin. There are people who own hundreds of Bitcoin. There are people who own 10, 20, 50 Bitcoin. But this Bitcoin is going to be redistributed. This Bitcoin is not going to stay with those people. Of course, there's going to be some inequality, but that's just how it is. You can't fully make a system equal unless you have a complete reset. So in this case, if we completely reset the system, there has to be people in the middle, people taking care of the system. There's planning involved. In the case of Bitcoin, everybody has access to it. Everybody has the same access to it. Anyone can buy Bitcoin at any time. You can buy Bitcoin for the same price that I can buy Bitcoin for right now. You can buy Bitcoin for the same price that a billionaire can buy Bitcoin for. So you're buying the exact same asset as that billionaire. We're all competing for the same thing. So total population, global population is 8 billion people today. Estimated population from the United Nations is, for 2050, is 9.7 billion people. But keep in mind that maybe not everyone adopts this. Maybe not everyone holds on to it forever. I personally think that that's where the world is headed. I think that Bitcoin is the best money that we've ever created, but there are definitely going to be people who don't think the same way as me. So they're going to keep using dollars. They're going to keep using pounds, euros, whatever the currency is, until their currency is worth zero and they're forced to own Bitcoin. So let's look at what the numbers are going to look like when adoption actually happens. So we can see here in 2024, let's say we have 25% adoption today based on the current circulating supplies of 19.7 million, and we have 25% adoption. This means that people will have to own, to be in the median, to be right in the middle, they'll have to own about 986,000 Satoshis. If we have 50% adoption, 493,000 Satoshis. 75% adoption, 328,000 Satoshis. 100% adoption, meaning that everybody in the world owns Bitcoin. 4 million lost. We're going to see 17 million. The total supply will be 17 million. So this is based on the 21 million number. This estimate, the LC, is based on lost coins being excluded from the total supply. So this number is based on 19.7 million current circulating supply. In the future, there will be 21 million. The number at the bottom is based on the 15.733 million current circulating supply based on 4 million lost. So if you just wanted to be in the middle of the pack, if you wanted to be not average, if you wanted to be median, right in the middle, you'd have to own about 196,000 Satoshis based on the current supply. If you own 196,000 Satoshis and every Bitcoin is split equally between everybody in the world, you'd be right at the average. You'd own the exact same amount as everyone else. But keep in mind that this number won't be split equally. We're going to see that wealth inequality. The people who join this last are going to have to work for their Bitcoin. They're going to have to offer their labor. They're going to have to offer their goods and services to accumulate Bitcoin. So to them, this 196,000 Satoshis will be unreachable. They're probably never going to get to that number. A lot of people on Earth will never reach 196,000 663 Satoshis ever. So if you were to own 0.1 Bitcoin, you would be better than every single one of these scenarios. You see that here. At 25% adoption with the current population with 21 million Bitcoin in total, the maximum that everybody can own, if we split it with everyone and 25% adoption, those 25% of people, if they split all that Bitcoin between themselves, they'd have 986,000 Satoshis. If we consider the lost coins, it's down to 800,000 Satoshis. But then let's say by 2050, we have, of course, a higher population growth due to just the resources that we have will be 9.7 billion people on Earth. We'll see that people are going to own at most, with 25% adoption, 865,000 Satoshis. By then, I think knowing someone who owns 865,000 Satoshis will be rare. Knowing people who own 1 Bitcoin will be extremely, extremely, extremely rare. Knowing people that own 10 Bitcoin, 100 Bitcoin, 1,000 Bitcoin, they're going to be pretty much able to do whatever they want to. They're going to have all this wealth. I'm assuming by then a lot of that Bitcoin will be redistributed to the people around the world. Who knows how it'll happen? I personally think if you can get to this 0.01 Bitcoin number as soon as possible, you do very well for yourself. So let's look at another number here. This is for housing. Right now, a lot of people use houses as a store of value. A lot of people buy houses and they think that they can use those houses as a way to save for the future. And I don't think that will be the case. If the world goes to a Bitcoin standard, the price of a house is going to decrease forever. Right now in the entire world, there are 2.4 billion houses. 2.4 billion, that's with a B. The total supply in the US of homes is 150 million. Out of these 150 million, it's estimated that about 10% are unoccupied, meaning that we don't even need all of the homes that are in supply. We don't even need all of them. We don't use them. So in 2024, the cost of a house based on 21 million Bitcoin, 21 million supply, the cost of a house should be 822,208 Satoshis in the entire world, overall globally. There are parts of the world where you can buy a house for less than 1 Bitcoin, but there's no place on earth where you can buy a house for under $650, about $550. There's no place on earth where you can do that. The cost of a house in the US, based on this number and based on this number, should be 0.13 Bitcoin. That should be the price of one house. But right now, a house costs 7 to 8 Bitcoin. So right now, we have assigned value to houses that shouldn't be there. Houses have a massive monetary premium that, again, should not be there. But this also only considers that we're using all of this Bitcoin to only buy houses. We're not using it to buy anything else. What that means is this number should be even lower. This number should be below 0.1, 0.05, significantly lower than what it is today. If we consider the lost coins, if we consider those 4 million lost coins, a house anywhere in the world should be less than 700,000 Satoshis. So it'd be 655,000 Satoshis anywhere in the world, less than 0.01 Bitcoin. So if you have 0.01 Bitcoin today, I think you'll do extremely well over the next few decades. The cost of a house in the US in 2024, based on 4 million Bitcoin gone, never going to be found again, it should be 0.1 Bitcoin or less. Right now, like I said, 7 Bitcoin per house, 7 to 8 Bitcoin per house. The current global market value for houses in terms of dollars is $300 trillion. What this means is that the housing market is right now about 250 times the value of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is worth $1.3 trillion. The housing market is $300 trillion. Bitcoin is worth $1.3 trillion. So what Bitcoin will do over the next few decades, few years, however long it takes, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, what Bitcoin is going to do is it's going to extract all of the monetary value from houses, and we're going to see the price of houses decrease significantly. Right now, the total housing market, the global housing market, is worth 4,846,153,846 Bitcoin. Total, there are 21 million Bitcoin. So the housing market is worth 250 times the market cap for Bitcoins. And Bitcoin is supposed to be global money. It's supposed to be the money that the entire world uses for everything. We're going to be using Bitcoin for all of our day-to-day transactions, meaning that the price of housing should be significantly less than what it is today. Houses should not be something that we're using as a store of value. We shouldn't be using houses as an investment, a business. Houses should be used as shelter, and that's it. We should be creating other value rather than being landlords, rather than aspiring to be landlords, rather than aspiring to be real estate developers. Real estate developer is a much better job than landlords, but we don't need as many houses as we have. Like I said, 10% of these houses are unoccupied. People aren't living in them. We don't need this many houses. I personally think what's going to happen over the next few decades is people who own tens, hundreds, thousands of homes are going to panic and sell those houses. They're going to sell those houses to anyone who will buy them. And the people who will buy them will very likely be Bitcoiners. And those Bitcoiners are going to pay them in Bitcoin for those houses. And I think there's going to be a point where a house in the US is going to cost less than 0.1 Bitcoin, less than 0.01 Bitcoin, if anything. Eventually, these prices will keep going down. They will trend to zero forever. But like I said, these numbers are only based on the entire world only valuing houses. Nothing else is valued. We don't care about food. We don't care about cars. We don't care about entertainment. We don't care about vacations. Nothing else matters. We don't care about spending time with our families. All we want is to buy houses. So this number should be significantly lower. Based on all those numbers, I think owning 0.01 Bitcoin will be a huge accomplishment in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. I think the people who can put in the amount of money that they need to buy that amount of Bitcoin will do very well. And you don't need to buy it all at once. You can buy it in fractions. You can buy a Satoshi at a time if you want to. You can buy 10, 100,000 Satoshis at a time. You can buy $1 worth, $1 US dollar buys you 1,500 Satoshis. So you need only about 650 US dollars to buy 0.01 Bitcoin. If you can make that investment, I think you'll do very well. I think your future is going to be set. I think you will be very happy in the coming years if you make that 0.01 Bitcoin purchase. If you make more, of course, it'll happen sooner. I think the 0.01 Bitcoin will be worth a lot more in 20 to 30 years by the time, let's say, you want to retire, than it's worth today. If you're a Gen Z millennial owning 0.01 Bitcoin with the plan to retire in, let's say, 2055, 30 years from now, 2065, 40 years from now, you'll do very well. That's my opinion. That's what I personally think. Just based on the numbers, based on the calculations, I think most people will do very well if they just accumulate Bitcoin. And once you understand that, once you see where this is going, it's very hard not to accumulate Bitcoin. There was a job opening at the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, that they wanted people to look into the Bitcoin ETFs, people who understand Bitcoin, but they wanted to hire people who don't own Bitcoin. So that's a problem on its own. The problem there is that people who understand Bitcoin know that they should own Bitcoin. If you don't own Bitcoin, you probably have a very limited understanding of how Bitcoin works, how money works. So what my recommendation would be is to study how Bitcoin works, study how money works, accumulate as much Bitcoin as you can over the next few decades. I think you'll be very happy with yourself. Make the decision that you want to, study Bitcoin, spend the time learning how it works, and I think you'll definitely end up at the same conclusion that I have. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, let me know below. If you want to learn more about why you need more than $1 million to retire, watch the video on your screen.